They said I was lucky to be alive, the nurse whispered as she adjusted the four. Your wife already signed the discharge paperwork. I turned my head toward the door, expecting to see her standing there. Exhausted, worried, angry maybe. The room was empty. That was how I woke up. Bruised ribs, a pounding head, and the first quiet clue that my marriage had ended while I was unconscious. I'm 35. At least I was that night. I work as a civil engineer in Phoenix, the kind who spends more time reviewing other people's mistakes than making headlines. My wife Rena and I had been married 7 years. Together for 9. Long enough that we'd stopped asking each other how our days were and started assuming we already knew. The reckless night everyone asks about wasn't reckless in the obvious ways. No drugs. No affair. No secret double life. It was supposed to be a harmless escape. One night out after months of tension that neither of us wanted to name. Rena had been distant for a while. Not cold. Polite. Efficient. She folded laundry with military precision. Kissed my cheek like it was a calendar obligation. She slept facing the edge of the bed. Phone always charging on her side, screen down. When I suggested a weekend away, she said she was tired. When I suggested therapy, she said we weren't that bad. When I suggested a night out, she said, "You go. I'll stay in." So I went. A coworker's birthday. Downtown. Loud bar. Too many people pretending they were younger than they were. I didn't drink much. I remember that clearly because later that detail would matter to everyone except me. The last thing I remember is stepping outside for air. The music was muffled through brick walls. The streetlight flickered. Someone laughed behind me. Then nothing. They told me later I was hit by a car. Low speed. Bad angle. Head hit the curb. Someone called it in. Ambulance. Sirens. Darkness. When I woke up it was morning. The room smelled like antiseptic and burned coffee. My phone was gone. My wedding ring was still on my finger, which felt ironic. A doctor came in and explained the injuries. Concussion. Cracked ribs. Lucky. That word again. I asked for my wife. The doctor hesitated. She was here earlier, he said. She left. Left. Not stepped out. Not grabbing coffee. Left. I asked when she'd be back. She asked that all communication go through her attorney. That sentence didn't register right away. It floated. Hung there. Attorney. I repeated. The doctor looked uncomfortable. I assumed you knew. I didn't. The nurse handed me a phone an hour later. There were messages. Missed calls. Not from Rena. From her sister. From my brother. From an unknown number with a single text. Please don't contact Rena directly. This is for the best. For who, it didn't say. I was discharged that afternoon. I took a rideshare home because I wasn't cleared to drive. The driver tried to make small talk. I stared out the window and watched my city feel unfamiliar. When I got home the house was wrong. Too quiet. Too empty. Her shoes were gone. Her coat. The photo frames were still there. But some pictures had been turned face down. Not removed. Just hidden. There was a folder on the counter. Inside, copies of bank statements, a typed list of shared assets, and a note in her handwriting. I need space. Please don't make this harder than it already is. No, are you okay? No, I was scared. Just logistics. I sat down slowly. My ribs screamed. My head pulsed. And for the first time since the accident, panic set in. Not about my body but about my life. I called her sister. Straight to voicemail. I called Rena. Blocked. I checked social media. Her accounts were deactivated. Felt coordinated. Efficient. Like a plan that had been waiting for a trigger. That night, I slept in the guest room because our bed felt hostile. Like it had chosen a side. The next day, her sister finally called back. She's safe, she said quickly. She just needs time. For what? I asked. I was in the hospital. There was a pause. She was shaken by what happened. So was I said. I almost died. Another pause. Longer. She feels like this is a pattern, her sister said carefully. What pattern? I asked. Instability, she replied. Risk. I laughed then stopped when it hurt. I got hit by a car, I said. Walking. She thinks the night says something. her sister said. About your judgment. That was the first time I realized the story wasn't about what happened. It was about how it could be used. 2 days later, Rena agreed to meet. Not at home. At a cafe near the hospital. Neutral ground. Witnesses. She looked composed. Hair perfect. Sunglasses on indoors. I didn't abandon you, she said before I could speak. I protected myself. From what? I asked. From the chaos, she replied. This, she gestured vaguely at me, the bandage still visible. This is not what I signed up for. I stared at her. I got hurt, I said. I didn't cheat. I didn't lie. She took a sip of water. You didn't think, she said. And I'm tired of carrying that. That's when I realized she'd already rewritten our entire marriage around one night I couldn't even remember. And I was the only one who hadn't gotten the memo. I replayed that meeting for days. Not the words, her tone. Calm. Detached. Like she was explaining a budget cut. Not walking away from a man who had woken up alone in a hospital bed. Part of me still believed there had been a misunderstanding. That if I could just remember the night clearly enough, explain it cleanly enough, she'd soften. Come back. Sit beside me again instead of across from me. That hope lasted exactly 1 week. It ended the afternoon I opened our shared laptop to download medical paperwork and saw an email notification flash across the screen. Subject, about that night. It wasn't sent to me. It was sent to her. From a man named Ethan. I knew the name. He worked at the same architecture firm she'd joined 2 years earlier. I'd met him once at a holiday party. Friendly. Forgettable. The kind of guy you don't worry about because he doesn't seem important enough to matter. The email preview showed just one line. I didn't expect things to spiral like that, but I'm not sorry we crossed the line. My hands went cold. I shouldn't have opened it. I know that. But dignity is hard to prioritize when your entire life feels like it's being explained without you. The thread was short. Clean. Professional on the surface. They'd met for drinks after work. The same night I went out with my coworkers. She'd told him she was lonely. That our marriage felt stalled. That she didn't know how to leave without being the villain. He told her she deserved more. They didn't explicitly describe sex. They didn't have to. What they described was worse. Intimacy disguised as inevitability. Then the final message from her. I think the accident changes things. Gives me clarity. Clarity. I closed the laptop slowly and sat there, listening to the hum of the ceiling fan. So that was it. The reckless night wasn't the betrayal. It was the excuse. She hadn't left because I went out. She left because she'd already stepped somewhere else, and my injury gave her moral cover to do it cleanly. I texted her. Just one message. I know about Ethan. She replied an hour later. I didn't want you to find out that way. Not denial. Not apology. Just regret about the timing. We met again, this time at our house. Or what used to be ours. She stood in the living room like a guest waiting to be shown around. You were already gone, I said. Before the accident. She didn't argue. I was unhappy, she said. And you didn't notice. I noticed, I replied. You just didn't like what noticing required. Her jaw tightened. I never loved you the way you loved me, she said. You were safe. Predictable. Convenient. There it was. The word people use when they want to sound honest without sounding cruel, and fail at both. So you let everyone believe I did something wrong, I said. You let them think I was reckless. Unstable. She crossed her arms. You did go out, she said. You did get hurt. And you slept with someone else, I replied. Before that night. Silence. Then, colder than anything she'd said so far. My feelings don't matter to you, she said. You just want to be right. I laughed. A short broken sound. No, I said. I want to understand why my pain became useful to you. That's when she finally looked away. The confrontation didn't escalate. It dissolved. She packed the rest of her things 2 days later. Moved in with her sister temporarily. Ethan, I learned later, had his own place and his own complications. She wasn't rushing into anything. That detail mattered more to her than it did to me. What followed was the slowest collapse of my identity I've ever experienced. I wasn't just a husband anymore. I wasn't even a patient. I was a cautionary tale. People spoke to me carefully, like my life might shatter again if they used the wrong tone. At work, HR suggested I take time. Friends invited me out but watched me too closely. My parents asked what I'd done wrong without meaning to. And at night, alone, I started to believe them. That maybe I was careless. That maybe the accident revealed something broken in me. That maybe love really does leave when stability cracks. The turning point didn't come in a dramatic moment. It came in the shower one morning, when I caught myself apologizing out loud to no one. "I'm sorry," I said to the steam. "I didn't mean to ruin everything." And then I stopped, because the words didn't feel true. I hadn't ruined everything. I had been unconscious. I had been vulnerable. I had survived. And somehow that had been used against me. That was the moment I stopped begging for explanations, for kindness, for a version of her that didn't exist. I started focusing on what I could control. My recovery. My boundaries. My silence. Recovery didn't arrive on a schedule. It didn't have a soundtrack. It didn't come in headlines or grand gestures. It came in small, almost imperceptible ways. The first night I slept through without waking, replaying that email or her words. The first time I didn't check the house for signs of her return. The first morning I poured coffee for one and didn't feel the hollow weight of absence. I moved into a small apartment downtown, a space I could manage alone, a place where I could hear my thoughts without the echo of judgment or reminders of what I had lost. Work became my anchor. Not to distract, not to prove anything, but to remind myself I had value independent of her approval or presence. I revisited projects I'd shelved, learned new software, found joy in problem solving that had nothing to do with anyone else. Slowly, subtly, I realized that competence and purpose were different from love. They didn't require permission or reciprocation, and they didn't betray me. Socially, I shrank at first. Friends approached cautiously, unsure how to address a wound I couldn't yet name to them. I learned to speak plainly, to say, "I'm processing. I don't need commentary," and meant it. I stopped performing grief for others, stopped justifying my pain. Silence became a tool, not a punishment. Months passed. I didn't run into Ethan, an absence that was oddly comforting. I didn't seek him out either. My dignity didn't depend on confrontation. Realizing that his existence in her life wasn't a reflection of my failure, but a reflection of her choices, was liberating. The divorce finalized quietly. No courtroom drama, no shouting matches. Just documents signed, handed over, and a finality that felt like a door closing with soft authority. Rena left without looking back, and I didn't chase. I rebuilt routines around me, not her. Morning runs along the canal, evenings reading on the balcony, weekends devoted to friends I'd neglected. I discovered that emotional justice doesn't always mean retaliation. It means honoring your worth in every small decision you make afterward. The biggest lesson came unexpectedly. One evening, a friend asked why I hadn't shared my story publicly, why I hadn't ranted online or sought sympathy. I said, "Because I don't need anyone else to validate what I've survived." The point isn't that she left. It's that I stayed true to myself while everything around me tried to redefine me. I never wanted to be bitter. I wanted to be whole. And in that choice there was power. Not the loud cinematic kind, just a quiet, unshakable authority over my own life. If anyone listening takes one thing from this, let it be this. A single reckless night might reveal someone else's true colors, but it does not define you. Survival is not just living. It's standing afterward with your integrity intact, without apology, without chasing those who chose differently. Pain is inevitable. Betrayal is real. But dignity? That is yours to claim. I learned to let go of the narrative she wrote for me, and in that freedom I found myself again. The man who wakes up, alive with scars but unbroken. And that's worth more than any explanation, any apology, or any lost love.